Good evening, friends and family, and thank you for coming to another night with Repair, Restore, and Grow Black Communities. And tonight we have a very prominent guest here. Some of you probably recognize Will Crosby. He's been a staple in our community around a lot of subject matters and issues for a long time. But we asked him to come on the show tonight because of the role that he plays with the 63rd Street Beach Drummers. And in case you didn't know, they're not over there right now. Our new superintendent of the Park District, Carlos Ramirez Rosa, has placed a gate that is closed, and in order to get into the area at the 63rd Street Beach here in Chicago, you have to pay. There's a $4 charge to come in for the first hour, and then I think you might end up paying something like $24, $25 for the whole day. So this has definitely had an impact on the dynamics of what goes on there, and this wonderful institution of the 63rd Street Beach Drumming that has occurred here in Chicago since the 70s. And so we're going to be talking about that tonight. And Will, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be with us tonight. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. And as you know, we're a nonprofit organization. We're working to enhance the awareness and support of Black businesses here in Chicago. And that is because of the limited cycle that occurs when our dollar is circulating in our community for less than 6 hours, and up to 30 in some other, actually up to 30 days in some other ethnic communities. And so we know that if we're supporting our businesses like we should, that can help with the economics in our community. It can help with our schools. It can help with a lot of social issues that we're having in our community. So it's very important that we support our businesses. So we typically have a Black business on this podcast on Wednesday nights that we feature, and we give them an opportunity to talk about their business and how they got into their business. And many of them have some fascinating stories. And so that's what this podcast is about. But then we also address topics that are of importance and impactful to our community. And this is one of them that we're going to be talking about tonight. We also support our bookstores. I just heard or just read that in South Carolina, the NAACP had filed a lawsuit because they felt that they were in the schools, they were removing the discussion or diminishing the discussion of racism and the history of racism in this country within the curriculum, and that the judge has ruled against them. So I don't know where this is going to go, but this is what's happening. Our history is being washed away. Nobody wants to talk about it. People are getting on talk shows saying that we don't have a culture and all of this kind of stuff. So this is part of our struggle. This is part of our history. This is part of who we are here as Black people in this country. And so we are great supporters of our bookstores. And at one point, I remember we had over 22 Black bookstores here in Chicago, and it dwindled down to two, but there is a resurgence of Black bookstores in this city. And if you go to our website at rrgbc.org, we have listed most of these bookstores. I think there are a couple others that we need to add to the list, but we have more bookstores, which means that our people are reading, and it's very important. You know, the knowledge and the information, the history, uh, uh, knowing what's happening now, it's in our books, and it's important for us to impart this knowledge to our children. So that's why we support our bookstores. We feature a bookstore on our website every month. Our bookstore for this month and for last month has been Frontline Books, and you can contact them at frontlinebooks.com. Brother Sekou has a plethora of very interesting and impactful reads on his website. He's also publishing. For those of you who are authors and you want to get your books published, you can give Brother Sekou a call. But we feature him on our website, and then we give a book away. And the book that we're giving away to a lucky subscriber is My Life in Ethiopia's Progress from 1892 to 1937. And this is an autobiography of Haile Selassie, the Emperor of Ethiopia, and it covers his life and the modernization of his country. And as you know, Ethiopia won its independence during that colonization period from the Italians. So they're very powerful and interesting people. And so if you want to win a copy of this book, it's actually a 2-volume. The second volume focuses on the Italian occupation and Ethiopia's rise to independence. So you want to win a copy of this 2-volume book, all you have to do is go to rrgbc.org and subscribe. And then we want you to go to Save Black Bookstores at change.org and sign our petition, because we want our local politicians, our local municipalities to look at supporting our bookstores, giving them contracts for our schools and helping them out. And so that's why we're asking you to sign that petition. And then finally, we are supporters of the Southside Community Federal Credit Union that is located at 5401 South Wentworth here in Chicago. And they've been there for over 20 years. They've definitely increased the products and services that they can provide: personal loans, auto loans, micro loans, title loans, loans with lower interest rates in lieu of these high payday loans that many of you are getting into. And it doesn't usually end up being such a good situation because you're paying so much money. And they also give financial literacy classes. So in order for a bank to thrive, as you know, we have to open up accounts. So we ask that you consider going to the Southside Community Federal Credit Union and open up an account so they can continue to serve the community and do the wonderful work that they're doing. Okay? All right. So let's get to Will Crosby and the 63rd Street Beach Drummers. Will, I remember the drummers at 63rd Street when I was a child. We would go out there at like maybe 1 o'clock in the morning. My father, oh, okay, excuse me. My father has had a conga drum, and he would go out there and play. We would go out there because it was too hot in the house, but we would stay until sunrise. And so this institution of drumming out at the Southside Community Federal Credit Union has been going on for a long time. And I would like for you to discuss and tell us about this institution. I want you to talk about why you feel it's being shut down, and what we're doing to fight against it.
Well, thank you for having me this evening. The first thing I want to say is that drumming didn't start at 63rd Street. It actually started on 39th Street. Then it moved down to 57th Street. Okay, it was on 39th Street beachfront back in the 50s. And then in the 60s, it moved to 57th Street. There used to be a military base where, in my high school days, we would go out there and listen to the music. And because the police came out there and started in 1970 and started throwing people's instruments into Lake Michigan. You may not know about that, but there was like an actual riot that took place out there on 57th Street. Really, it probably it was like the point. You know what the point is?
Yes.
Okay, so from there we were banned from being there on that place to play music. So they moved down 63rd Street in 1970, and from 1970 to today, which is 54 years ago now, it's been consistent drumming at 63rd Street. Now, the most interesting part about 63rd Street, that park has been through changes about 3 or 4 times. They've redesigned the park. Used to be a time where the CTA bus actually brought you all the way to the park, and you could carry you didn't have to carry your drum from Stony Island. Then they stopped the CTA bus from going, but it's so far. And a lot of times people have to carry their drums from Stony Island all the way to the beachfront. And so these guys were real committed to drumming in those days. First, like I said, well, they counted most young people at that time because there was a thing called the Afro Art Theater that Phil Coran ran, and a lot of those drummers played there. They were known as the Sun Drummers, and those guys were a lot of them probably be the '80s, maybe even '90s now, who played drums. And these guys consistently played. One of the drummers actually played with Curtis Mayfield, Master Henry, uh, and drumming is just something that was very consistent as a cultural relationship to the community. And I never get people tell me how I heard the drums and it drew me to them. And people would come there and come there, like you say, all night long we would play until the sunrise. And then one time they shut the park down, saying they were going to do something to fix the park. And that's when they redesigned the inside and cut the buses from coming out into the park. Now at this point, there's no gate still on the park.
Mhm.
Okay, and so we went across the street from the park for about a year and a half and played across the street until they completed that project. And then as soon as that project was over, we moved back across the street, back into the park. Uh, there were many, many drummers at that stage. People who drummed with Mantu, who drummed with Nezwa, all have came to that place and played drums. People who drummed with Darlene Blackburn, all them came to that space and played drums. Uh, these brothers who played drums, some of them were international in terms of uh, their relationship with the African relationship. And so some went to the Festac in 77 Nigeria. And
Mhm.
so, again, this was a cultural thing that we've been doing. Like an answer, when I was never a drummer, actually. I
Mhm.
played cornet and I played a lot of steel instruments, but most of my friends were drummers who were there. And I was like the auxiliary to the drummers. I played bells and a steel drum, uh, so that's been my relationship with the drummers. And it's interesting because every time that we never had violence in that park. For years, people would come to that park, and the one thing they would say, "Well, we come over here, there's no violence." Now, just across the street from us, they may have violence across the street in the other part of the park, but not where the drummers were, because we didn't allow it. Matter of fact, I remember an instance where a guy wanted to beat up his woman. You can't beat your woman up here, sir. And all the drummers got up and stepped to the brother. And to me, he ain't been a part of doing that, man. You got to leave here with that. And so we had very little violence ever in that park. And, so that was one experience. Then the next experience, you used to have an overhead uh, pathway to get into the park. Do you remember that? We used to walk
Yes.
up the steps and go overhead across the highway, come
Yes.
back down the side. Well, they came up with something to shut the park down again.
Hmm.
And so we would go to Washington Park and play with Washington Park until that was completed. And again, we played to sunrise, as you know.
Hmm.
It's just a community relationship, The community, people who never had encountered these drums would come out there. They would start dancing. They would bring their food. They would be upset if people weren't there. They said, "Where the drummers at?" Well, they ain't got here yet. They'll be here shortly. But people be looking for the drummers because it brought a calmness to the community. And
Right.
so you remember we have the beach there, and so people could bring their children and have to worry about no violence. And every time that they would shut the park down, they would create another situation to create violence. You know, first time they came out there, they changed up and they put in parking to charge people for parking. But how do you charge the neighborhood that's paying you taxes and re-tax them again? You already paying them taxes on this park. And now you're going to
Right.
re-tax us again to park our cars for what we already paid taxes on. So the people rebelled against paying for the parking. So they used to send meter maids out there and give a lot
Hmm.
of tickets out to people. And then they stopped doing that when the people told us meter maids, you can't be out here with that. Go tell your bosses. And so they left it alone.
Hmm.
Now, we several years ago, Jamaicans started hanging out there. Jamaicans are very entrepreneurial. They start cooking a lot of food. The first brother was a brother by the name of Zebulon. He came out for years. He used to, when he first got to America, he would get a cart, a shopping cart, wood, his meat, and he would walk for 60 nights in Wentworth out there to cook. And so it brought more people there because now they didn't bring in food. They could always eat. And people stay out the park all day long in the summertime. You've been in the house so long in the wintertime, as soon as summertime, you'd be glad to be outside. And so, they put the yellow fence up and started making us leave the park at 11 o'clock, which, let me go back a little. I missed something. Back in 1984, Mayor Harold Washington came out there and declared 63rd Street as a cultural park for black people. And he hung out while we played. Congressman Gus Savage used to come out there and hang out. I mean, you'd be surprised. Even Lieutenant Governor Stratton came out there and hung out. So it's been a place that people come. It's our culture. You know, the rhythms are our rhythms because they're ancestral rhythms. Uh, like I say, at this stage, I've been out there 50 some years, but most of the guys who I initially came out there, they were out there. Most of them have actually passed away. So we got a new generation of drummers, and they get a little intimidated. They constantly keep police at the gate of the park,
Hmm.
and so if the park gets full, the park is locked down, so nobody can come in. You can go across the street and park, but you can't come in.
Hmm.
You can walk over, but you can't drive in. So what happened is that drummers don't want to get out their car 2 blocks away. And these guys, most of them are in their 40s and 50s, and carry drums uh, over to the park. Because again, they're what I call they're late drummers in life. But
Hmm.
they start drumming when they get like late 30s, early 40s, into their 50s, and so these guys are pretty much new to drumming. But again, it's like this one guy I never forget. He was fishing on 67th Street. He said, I kept hearing this drum playing. He said, I kept hearing. He said, I pulled my backed up my fist up and followed the sound of the drum. And so when he gets up to the park, he said, "Oh, he's from the West Side. I didn't never know this even existed."
Hmm.
So next thing you know, this brother goes out the next day. and buys 5 drums.
Oh my goodness.
And comes back to the beach every day until he passed away. Every day, no matter what he was doing, he was a barber.
Mm-hmm.
At 5 o'clock, he's no longer cutting hair. He tell you, I'm going to the park.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not cutting no hair. I'm going to the park. And so he would show up every day. And he had a little brother who would like to, he was like a little brother with autism.
Mm-hmm.
And he would be so happy to be around these drums. So you saw how we had old ladies who were like great grandmothers who would come out there and sit. I mean, it was a very diverse kind of relationship between old and young.
Mm-hmm.
Little kids would get up and dance, but what happened is that they continually harassed the park, and particularly they tried to build a drum circle for us, and they put us way back out on the lakefront, so
Okay.
nobody could see we were there, and we never went to it because we always played in the front part. Once they changed it, so we used to play on the south side of the thing, but because they had changed it over, we moved to where there was some concrete and played with concrete, so we had to walk in the dirt. And
Mm-hmm.
then the other people could sit in the grass like they did on the other side. But there no longer was no sleeping all night long, coming out there at 1 o'clock in the morning. I remember people used to leave the club to come to 63rd Street. So wait, I'm going to 63rd Street. And we talk about 3 o'clock in the morning, people leaving at 4 o'clock in the morning, and they come in there to stay there at 6, 7 in the morning. We actually, they had shut down the bathhouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And prior to that, Phil Coran brought like 150 students out there. And I'm going back because I just remember stuff as I remember it. They got up on the bathhouse and sat on the bathhouse all the way around. Now, as we all know about Phil Coran was a cultural teacher. He
Yes, he
had,
was.
he had held, when I was in high school, there was something called the Afro Arts Theater. It was at 39th and Drexel. And he had all kind of, I saw Shaka Khan play there, who was my high school mate. I saw the Earth, Wind, and Fire guys play there. The Pharaohs play there. Bosco played there. So it's been a many guys who came through there and played, as well as, all the jazz musicians that used to hang out and play there.
Mm-hmm.
So those people, it was part of a cultural relationship. We had saxophone players like Light Henry Huff, who came to 63rd Street.
Yes.
We had, as a brother who was doing uh, recording, he brought us to the studio. We recorded up in the studio drums. So I mean, it affected many people in our community,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's another way of displacement. Now, one of the reasons I think that they're doing what they're doing is because they have the Obama Library going up. And if you ever
Mm-hmm.
see the Obama Library plans, it's to take the whole south end. That's where they shut the street down and change the whole directions of which ways the park rides inside of Jackson Park over there.
Okay.
Initially, they're going to put a PGA golf course there. I don't know where that's at this stage, but that was one of the reasons they said they had to change it up because they put this PGA golf course. It had to be 18 holes. And so there's a plan at foot. The Park District, uh, even though people have fought about the Park District putting the Obama Library there because it's taking up public land, they put it up anyway. So again, one of those problems that the Park District has is that they had made this commitment to the Obama Library, and so it has nothing to do with our community. It's part of a displacement of people within the Inglewood, I mean, excuse me, in the Woodline area,
Mm-hmm.
because Jackson Park sits right off of Woodline, and so when you look at how they've been moving on a gentrification level, it's all
Sure.
part of a gentrification program, and so.
You
We
know,
we put together a petition,
okay.
and we're asking people to sign that petition. But again, the bad part about it when they slid this in, they didn't put it in the beginning of the summer. They came up with about 5 weeks ago. They put this down. The second fence. I already had the police blocking at the gate, but now they put a second fence with a camera on it. So when you ride in and take a picture of your license,
Mm-hmm.
and then But the funny part, they have a guy by the name of Reggie who owns a restaurant on the beachfront. Now his people who come to his restaurant can park basically for free because they have sectioned off part of a public park for a private business of about maybe 60 cars that they can park there in Jackson Park. Again, I see this as and the part about it, the guy's not even from our community. He's from
Right.
he's a different racial breakdown. He owns a club down on 22nd Street. You may have heard called Reggie's. But there was a black guy who would try to have a business there, but they'd give him back the contract the next year when they knew they were going to put up this whole piece on 63rd Street. They moved him out. You know,
Well,
so
Will, I agree with you 100% when you say this is really a part of displacement, and the further damage is also the erosion of our culture. And
without a doubt,
I see a pattern. You come in with violence, and then there's sabotage, and then there is the media, and then there's social isolation. And with the violence part, of course, we had our Rosewoods and our Tulsa, Oklahomas, and we know what happened to them. So when you come and you just remove an institution like this, it's like an act of violence,
well,
because
as you know, as you know, as you
you're
know, Woodline,
destroying this institution.
but as you know, Woodline's property values are constantly going up
Hmm.
because the University of Chicago owns a lot of the land there. And I don't want to not forget that the University of Chicago is involved with this as well. And so part of this is that they've been trying to change Woodline for the last 40 years. As they tear buildings down in Woodline, they never would replace them. You've already
Right.
vacant lots in Woodline. But that's because of a bigger plan. They consider their campus from 67th Street down to 43rd Street. That's what they consider University of Chicago area,
Hmm.
all on the lakefront. And that's what they want to go back to. And as you can remember, I don't know if you do, but there used to be public housing right there on 43rd and the lakefront. And they tore it down, because again, this has been a plan of a gentrification of black
Hmm.
folks on the lakefront. I think they never got over the issue of black people moving in the South Shore. South Shore was a very exclusive community for many, many years of Jewish people like Jacobson on Channel 2, used to be on Channel 2 News. He grew up
Yes.
there. And a lot of other prominent European white people grew up there.
Hmm.
Even had I even worked on a project where we saved the South Shore Country Club because as soon as it turned to a black community, they wanted to tear the actual building down. We said, well, why don't you tear the building down? There's nothing wrong with the building, you know. But that was their whole way of saying that they didn't want us at all to be able to use that building. So we wound up getting it on a historical site. And so again, it's black people on the lake for the only place really in Chicago where black people had a social structure going on were 63rd Street, South Shore Country Club, and Rainbow Beach. All the
Hmm.
stuff on the north end had been removed. 39th Street didn't have anything for a long time. 31st Street didn't have anything for a long time. So over the last couple of years, they put those things up. But as we know, none of them are really cultural. They're just maybe
Right.
places that people come. Where 63rd Street was a very cultural park in terms of the people got a different kind of vibration when they came there. And
Right.
so I think that we have a responsibility from a community level to one, not be pushed off the lakefront,
Mm-hmm.
because this is a plan to push us off the lakefront.
Right.
Anytime you ask a family if they come to the beach and they bring in their children, and sometimes you know they come to the beach twice a week. It means that you got to spend, if you stay at the beach 5 or 6 hours, you spend between 25 and $30 to park your
Mm-hmm.
car. 2 days at $60. In a month time, you spend $240 just to park to go to the beach.
Right.
It makes no sense, you know. Particularly based on the economic situation in that community. You
Right.
know, the people who come to that park are generally from Inglewood or Woodlawn, or South Shore, or
Mm-hmm.
Park Manor, or Washington Park. You know, they come even from Bronzeville. They was coming to 63rd Street because it wasn't nothing at 47th Street. They basically didn't want us on 55th Street, and a little bitty. They have a little bitty beach there, but you know,
Mm-hmm.
nobody was going to that beach. But basically, a lot of people from University Hyde Park and University of Chicago,
Right.
and so it was a different kind of vibration in terms of our culture. And
Right.
so, you know, 63rd Street is a very important place in terms of. I mean, the first time I went out there has been 1954, no, 55. That's about
Okay.
3. I was about 3 years old. My father took me and my brother out there, and we played on the beach. And it was a lot where a lot of the black veterans were coming who were in World War II, and they were coming to that beach. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? And so it was a hangout for black people. And
Mm-hmm.
now what's happened is when you go out there because of the parking situation and because of this camera,
Mm-hmm.
only people basically come out the people who go to Reggie's to eat.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It looks like our screen has frozen here for our guest, but this is Will Crosby talking to us about the gentrification and
And this to
displacement
me, can
of
you hear
Black
me?
people in South Shore. So your screen had froze there for a second, Will.
Yeah, I know. I
So
was
we
like,
have,
what happened?
yeah.
All
Okay,
right,
go on.
so then when you look at the whole political aspect, uh, and I worked in Chicago City Council, you know, in my lifetime, and I know that I had to tell people that you can talk to aldermen, but that's not their responsibility because the park district is a different financial organization in the city of Chicago. It has its own
Okay.
superintendent, it has its own budget, it makes its own decisions. Now, the mayor appoints those people. Basically, once
Mm-hmm.
they're appointed, if the mayor's not watching everything everybody doing, it's like he get all these different areas of government that he appoints. And so I told people, if we're going to deal with this park
Okay.
district, we have to put pressure on those superintendents. They're the ones
Okay,
coming.
Will, you're breaking up. You're breaking up pretty bad here. We couldn't understand what you're saying.
Okay, that's not me. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, me neither. Okay, go on.
Can you hear me clearly now?
I can hear you. You're just kind of breaking up.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I'm getting this.
Yes, just all of a sudden, this happened.
Can I go out and come back in?
No, that's not making a difference here. But this is a live podcast here, and so
I'm trying
sometimes
to
we
tap out
do run into some problems.
on. I know control myself.
Okay. I'll tell you what we can do if you want to go out and come back in
Yeah,
and
I'm
see if
running.
that makes
Okay,
a difference.
okay. Let me see what comes.
Okay. So, family, we are talking here with Will Crosby. He has been a member of the 63rd Street Beach Drummers, and they have been removed um, from this uh, position that they're in. And this has happened just recently. in the last couple of months. I believe July is the last time that they've had an opportunity to play. But as we know, this has been a very important and strong institution in our community. But as he stated, this is part of a bigger plan. It's a part of displacing Black people from the South Shore area. And it's a part of the plan that they have with the Obama Center. And that's really unfortunate when you look at the fact that Michelle Obama herself came from this community, and then that you would come back and bring a presidential institution where we've had our first Black president, and to have the community dismantled like this. So it's really very unfortunate that this is happening. And the drummers do have a petition out. I wanted him to tell where you can actually sign that petition. But the community itself needs to get involved, because this is only one institution right now that is being displaced. There will be others if we don't say anything and if we don't stand up as a people and allow this to happen. I was a student at the University of Illinois, and this is when the university first started to expand around in that area in terms of building. And you had the Italian community on Taylor Street. You also had the Greek community or Greek businesses on Halsted Street. And they fought back. They stood up and they pushed back, and the university had to build around them. So everything does not have to be dismantled and destroyed when it comes to our Black communities. We have to stand up and we have to fight. And as he was saying, this is the Park District that we need to deal with. And I will tell you, Carlos Ramirez Rosa, who stepped down as alderman of the 35th Ward to take on this position of Park District Superintendent, made this move. He was just given this position in March. And so in July, we lost our drummers in the park because of them putting a parking meter and a parking system in there where you have to pay these exorbitant costs. But you can contact Carlos Ramirez Rosa at 312-742-7529. You can email to superintendent@chicagoparkdistrict.com. And then his address is 4830 Southwestern. And that's in Chicago, Illinois, 60609. And I would definitely say, if you want this to change, if you want to have some impact, that you need to contact his office, even find out when their board meetings are, and make your presence known, and give them your concerns about what is happening here in South Shore. And our guest has not returned. If he does not return, then we may have to have a part 2 to this discussion, because we do want to know what they're doing and how much progress they're making and how we can support. The drummers are very important to our community. When I talked about the gentrification and the strategies that they used, I mentioned closing the park, putting the parking meters there, running the drummers out. It is a form of violence. And then the sabotage goes all the way back to taking music and art out of our schools, where our children were not able to express themselves and be creative within our schools. And then, as he mentioned, around where the drummers were, there was very little violence or no violence there, because they have a code. There's no drinking, there's no drugs, there's no smoking, there's no profanity. And so that area created a level of peace And it was also a nice place where people can bring your children. It was a wholesome environment. The drumming there brought all of this. And so then the news media puts out that you have shootings. And I wanted him to talk about that because in another conversation with him, he said in the time that he's been there, there have maybe been two. But it seemed like in the news media, they was making it sound like, oh, people are getting shot over there. And so that was not the case. And so this is a big problem. And this is a problem that we continue to address. I did talk with our Alderman Desmond Yancey. He does support this institution, but as the Mr. Crosby was saying, we have to confront the Park District with doing this. And the Park District is doing a lot of things that was not intended for our parks to be participating in. And and people are having to pay to go to so many different venues in the park. But we know a lot of that has to do with the way our local government has managed resources. Namely when Daly sold off all of the parking meters. So there's all kinds of problems here that we're having to address. But I do thank Will for coming on. I think he's probably lost his signal and he may not be able to come back. But I do want to thank you for coming tonight. I do ask that you support this, find out what's going on, contact the Chicago Park District, and support the drummers, the 63rd Street drummers, in sustaining this particular institution. This is a part of our history. And they're not just there volunteering their art. This is an expression of culture, and it has had a positive impact in our community. And so it's very important that they stay where they are. But we do ask you to continue to support, repair, restore, and grow Black communities. You can go to our website where you can make a donation so we can continue to do the work that we're doing. There's so many people out here doing a lot of work, trying to push back and trying to help hold up our communities, our Black communities throughout this country, because these kind of actions and these types of experiences we're having all over the country, actually all over the world. And so this is part of the struggle. But I want to thank you for coming tonight. We ask that you come back next Wednesday night when we will either have another discussion about some topic that is of importance here in our Black community here in Chicago, or we will bring another business to you. So I want to thank you for coming tonight. And again, support Black businesses. That's very important. Thank you.